we live now?
Welcome. We are live.
Welcome, everybody.
All right. Hey, how's everyone doing? Fantastic. Look at this. We're live.
Yes.
All right. Family Maker Parent Happy Hour is happening. We have such an amazing night. We're really excited about this. Every week we've been trying to make it different. And last week we had our hosts and we got to meet them up close instead of watching them online doing virtual stuff. We get to ask them questions and stuff. And same with tonight. So tonight's same as every other week. You guys can comment in, and we are honoring the teachers and educators. We have a really great group.
Really excited about this panel because I feel like it's a voice that we haven't heard from in this way yet in Maker Camp. And as a parent myself, I'm very excited to hear their perspective and how we can support them, how we can best work together and all of that. So it's going to be a good conversation. And you guys, please, if you have questions specific to what you'd like to hear, comment in. We'll definitely be addressing those throughout as well.
We have principals, we have authors, we have homeschooling experts. I mean, it's going to be really fun. So yeah, any comments, put them in. We're going to try to get to your questions and stuff like that. And I don't know, should we dive right in? Should we get intros in and stuff or what?
Yeah, let's start. Let's let them introduce themselves. Toby Garcia, do you want to start us off and just tell us where you are, a little bit about what you do?
Sure. My name is Toby Garcia. I am a teacher at Urban Montessori. It is a independent public charter school in Oakland, California. In fact, we are the only public Montessori school in Oakland. I am a Montessori child myself. My mother was also a Montessori teacher. And I also grew up in a public Montessori school. So for me, teaching in the public sector and especially bringing the cosmic curriculum to the public sector is something that is very near and dear to my heart and very important. So I feel really privileged to be here, to be at my school and to get to share this curriculum with the children.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Toby. So let's move on to Rick Schertl we have joining us.
Hey everybody, I'm Rick and welcome to the Maker Happy Hour. So I'm glad to be here. So I'm a teacher in San Jose, California, and I teach at Steindorf K-8 STEAM School in California, here in San Jose. And just kind of, I haven't always been a Maker teacher. I have always been a teacher for my career. So this is 27 years now, I think. And my maker world and my teaching world came together about 4 years ago when we started Steindorf, which is in the school district where I've taught for many years. So I taught middle school English and history for many years, and then on the side was doing some books and articles for Make Magazine, and also really involved in Maker Faire. Kind of my signature project was the compressed air rocket that I developed for Make Magazine in 2008. It was issued, and I'm not sure Make Magazine is up to 60, 70 issues now. Anyway, so it was a long time ago. But so I've just loved being involved in Maker Faire here in the Bay Area, in New York, and now I get to do it full time as a Maker teacher. So it's a great job because every school is part of the Maker program. So it's not an elective, but if you're in middle school at Steindorf, then you get Maker classes every week. If you're in kindergarten through 5th grade, you get Maker classes. So it's really cool. So I love that. And yeah, I'm excited to be part of the panel tonight. Yeah. So thanks so much.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, this is great, dude. And like, we were talking earlier, I love, how you have that love for traveling with your family and kids. Katie and I, same thing, it's been a very big transition for us, all of a sudden getting smacked into this thing where we're all, in
one place.
Yeah.
I think probably a good amount of what we'll talk about tonight is just teaching using distance learning now, which has been a big change because making's all about hands-on. It's all about the physically putting things together, and kind of having to figure out how to do that is all part of the Maker ingenuity. So it's been good.
Thank you so much, Rick. So let's move. I know Bianca Forrester just joined in with us. Bianca, would you mind just sharing where you are, what you do, and a little bit about your background?
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you guys so much for hosting this amazing event. So I am the director of principal of Oakland Charter High School. We are actually voted the #1 high school in the city of Oakland by the U.S. News and World Report. We also made the Washington Post top 300 high schools in the country. So it's really exciting. Those accolades are coming out the last couple of days. We have a really robust maker program at our school. We have a maker class that has been approved for A through G requirements through UC Doorways, which is terrific, meaning that kids who take those classes in creative technologies get UC, they're approved for UC transfer. In addition to that, we have, so we're Title I school. Basically, all of the students who we serve qualify for free and reduced lunch, and we're in Oakland's East Oakland, in that neighborhood, and it's just so exciting to see our kids in that creative space using the laser printers and designing these incredible projects. And yeah, I actually really feel like folks need to be thinking more broadly around creative technologies and maker space, and really understand that that's an art space as well. And really kind of understand that creative impetus and validate it across the spectrum.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bianca. I know this is going to be such a good conversation. We have so many different perspectives and a rich background to come forth. And then last but not least, we have Kathy Cesari joining us. They're also in New York. So the other East Coaster with us.
That's
Kathy,
right.
do you mind sharing a little bit about what you are up to?
Sure. So I'm in Schuylerville, New York, which is a few hours upstate from you guys. A little town on the Hudson River. I homeschooled my kids from kindergarten through 12th grade, and then they went off to college, and now they're adults and they're living on their own. My background is as a journalist, so I totally sympathize with all the parents that are suddenly teaching their kids with absolutely no idea or no experience in teaching. And I'm here to tell you it can be done, and you will not ruin your kids, and don't worry if they miss a few months of classroom work, they will still survive. I've written, so when I was homeschooling way before even Make Magazine and the internet, I was writing for a magazine called Home Education Magazine, and I wrote a column called the Hands-on Learning column. So I was already thinking about you should be building things as part of your education, and every subject I had, you know, for math, I had kids making abacuses, and for social studies, they would design a flag for a country that they invented and things like that. So I have maker projects for every subject. For Make Magazine, I've written 5 books, and they are mostly aimed at upper elementary and up, with simple projects with everyday stuff, paper inventions and musical inventions where you're making instruments out of, you know, straws and metal bowls and, you know, everyday things. And so that's really that's my area of expertise, is making cool stuff out of junk, I guess.
It's amazing. And you know, you have fans already commenting to you, Kathy. There's Sandy Roberts is shouting an exclamation point. Hi, Kathy. So your work is being shown already virtually right here, right now. We're excited that you're part of this.
Yeah, and then our little before we went live, because for those of you who don't know, Mario and I homeschool our kids and travel the country normally with Magic and all of that. So we were talking with Kathy about the transition from homeschooling to college and all the stuff that you have to think about. But to start off this conversation today, I kind of wanted to get into the background of what schools mean to communities. It's something we had talked about it as a group earlier, that schools are not just a source of education or classroom for our kids in our communities. They're really a hub for a lot of things. It's the social connection, you know, it's the enrichment of the emotional enrichment. And it's also just a source of meals for a lot of kids, you know, a reliable source of a constant meal. So there's so many reasons why schools are important. So I'm curious, for you guys as educators, how has this changed? I know that you're doing virtual classroom stuff and there's a lot of the online, you're trying to pass that online classroom, but what are you doing behind the scenes? I know, Toby, I would love to check in with you because you had mentioned some of that extra stuff that you're putting in that a lot of us parents are just not aware of.
Yeah, so when we first realized that we were going to shelter in place, we were able to gather sort of like the teachers in my level, so all the 1st through 3rd grade teachers. We kind of came together and we collaborated and we made a bank of work based around subjects or areas that we were doing in the classroom. And we kind of used it as a running doc and we shared it out with all parents. And the lessons and the work that were in these documents were things that were totally accessible at home with materials that they could absolutely find at home. And we started with that. And then, I mean, it was basically just organizing and getting a list of things that people needed at home through sending out surveys to families. And we organized and we mobilized and we delivered things. We, dropped things off at people's doorsteps, or we made ourselves available for them to pick up at school. And then it was just a matter of organizing a schedule and getting families online and on the different learning platforms that we were using. My school, we went with Google Classroom, so getting people logged in there and whatnot, and really just getting parents on the phone and asking them, what do you need? How can I help? And here's a framework of how we organize our day at school. So let me help you organize what's attainable and what makes sense for your family. And so it became, Montessori is very much an individualized education, and it's an individualized teaching practice. And so it was just using that thought process to, help families individualize the work that was going to take place at home.
I think someone had mentioned that you teach a mixed age class. So is it 1st through 3rd graders, Toby?
Yeah, I'm a lower elementary teacher,
Okay.
so that's 1st through 3rd. So I have
Awesome.
6 to 9-year-olds, and I keep them all 3 years.
Because that's something that a lot of people, we hear the struggle as parents at home with different aged kids is like, how do you coordinate all of that? And what's the best way to do it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I have a lot of families who have, leveled children. And so my response to that was I would talk to the child and I would say, part of your work is helping mom with your little brother, because when we're at school and a big piece of their work within our classroom is that community building, and the older children really assume a leadership position, and these younger children have these older friends that they look up to and they strive for, and that doesn't change at home. Like, part of your work is contributing to the community, and your home is your community right now. And so I let them say, if you help mom watch your little brother for 30 minutes, count that as part of your work, because it's important right now.
Yeah, and I think, Rick, I think you had mentioned that you had pulled your kids out and homeschooled for a while, and maybe you can speak, and also Kathy, who has homeschooled her children. You guys have a lot of experience with that very topic of like, how do you involve all of your kids? Do you separate them out? Do you do it all at once? Do you kind of instruct them all together or let them lead the way? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think my wife she was kind of the, on ground zero with the kids. She did most of the homeschooling. But I think one thing was she spent a lot of time training them to work independently. And she spent a lot of time doing that so they could, occupy themselves. I think a lot of times kids are just waiting to be told what to do next. And I think really, training them, teaching them, to be self-starters is like really important. So I know that was important. And I think also what, Mario and Katie, what you were saying earlier on is that there's so much more to learning than just school. School isn't the same as education. Life is education. And school is an institution where learning takes place, but we're in a place now where, kids aren't in school, but there's still lots of learning. There's still lots of education taking place. I know you guys travel, Mario and Katie, and your kids learn so much on the road. We've been blessed to be able to travel a bit as a family as well, and we haven't worried about the specific subjects and things like that when we're traveling and doing other things, but we're really looking at kind of like life as school. And I know Kathy's probably got some good things to share about that as well.
Yeah, and every state has different homeschooling regulations. In New York, you're supposed to count the number of hours and report it every quarter. And one of my homeschooling friends said, I just put the total number of hours every quarter because my kids are learning all the time, no matter what they're doing. And I liked that philosophy. And I just put, 200 plus hour, 200, whatever, 70 hours every quarter, because they're whatever they're doing is educational. I don't remember, I mean, my kids are old now. I don't remember when they were younger, having the older one help the younger one so much as they were kind of doing their own thing. But I definitely had them help around the house. They just, it was part of what we did was they made their own breakfast, they made their own lunch. And so those kind of things were off my plate. I didn't have to worry about that too much when they got to be that age. With different age kids, and my kids, I mean, I was lucky that they got along and they were 3 years apart, but I was able to teach them together. So like they would sit down and do math workbooks at their own level. But when we did social studies, I would just we would just do with both of them at the same time. And maybe I would give the older one a little bit more involved writing assignment than the younger one would do a drawing or something like that. We did a lot of reading as a family. I think that's one of the reasons my younger one didn't read until age 7, because every night he was sitting and listening to Harry Potter, and then I would give him the cat sat on the mat, and he didn't understand. He refused to accept that was the same thing as the book that he was listening to every night. So he just refused to learn to read until everybody got tired of reading to him and he had to learn. But we were able to share a lot of what we did across the ages, and that made it a lot easier for me. And I know that every family is different, but that was one way that we got through it.
Yeah.
And I know, Bianca, as a principal, you have an interesting perspective because you're helping guide your teachers and also, forging that relationship between the parents and the teachers. I'd love to hear your input about this topic and also about how we as parents in a community can support all of you.
Yeah, so I'm thank you for the opportunity, because I think this is it. Aren't we all homeschooling now, right? Like it's all homeschool, and so what an exciting moment to innovate in education and really think, how are we going to do this differently? And so I think that for me, with the community that we're serving and with my group of teachers at my school, relatively small subset, but the conversation that's been the most rich thing is that the piece around, if you're going to ask the child to take the time to do that, and to Toby's point, away from babysitting or cleaning up or helping out around the house, it really needs to be something that is meaningful and engaging and worth that child's time. And wouldn't it be amazing if we could shift education away from this kind of rote and drill and more into something that is going to be so much more engaging and exciting and interesting. And so we're really pushing our team hard to figure out how to develop curriculum. And I'm sure that you parents at home watching are thinking, yeah, my kid is last thing my kid wants to do is fill out a worksheet right now.
Right.
They give me something engaging, and that's why this make space is so extraordinary. And I'm excited to hear about the projects that people are offering, and some of these really incredible ideas, like go around your house and fill a box with really cool things and make something out of it, that Kathy was mentioning in an earlier conversation. I just think that the opportunities here for us as educators to rethink what we're doing, for our society to really be thoughtful about what is next in education in a larger, so I just wanted to inject that perspective into that conversation.
Totally.
Yeah.
We actually have a few questions from social media, and Bianca, one is for you. Jennifer would like to know how you and your school are helping get in the community, being a Title I school, as well as, one second, sorry, I just lost it. And how are you guys helping kind of fill that void for your students, since they are predominantly Title I? She really would like your insight on that.
Yeah, well, that's a fantastic question, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to answer it, because I think it's something that we really need to be looking at scaling up what we're doing. Our model needs to be scaled up across large school districts. And what we're doing, like, we got every single kid a Chromebook immediately. When we realized that some of the kids didn't have access to the internet at home, we purchased a ton of hotspots. The next thing that we did was we got our teachers up to speed. We found an in-house tech person. So we have a tech team for our organization. Our organization has 6 schools, but I realized those guys are going to be so busy with this immediate shift to distance learning. We need to identify somebody on site, on team, who's going to be able to get in there and help our teachers learn how to navigate Zoom and Google Classroom and all of that. So we provided a tremendous amount of resources in terms of our time as a team in really offering really quality professional development to our teachers, not only around how to develop curriculum for this new context, but also importantly, how to feel comfortable with the technological tools that they need in order to advance student achievement in these really unprecedented times. In addition to that, we're doing things like dropping things off at kids' homes. So our creative technologies teacher has developed this really cool suspension bridge project that the kids are really excited about. They're watching videos about bridges and they've been looking at all these cool things. And we've ordered a bunch of popsicle sticks and glue, and we're putting them in paper bags, and we're driving around to people's homes and dropping them off for kids who just don't have enough stuff, to make sure that our kids do have access and that there is real foundational and fundamentally equity in all that we're doing. So it's really exciting.
It's super exciting. I just love how your eyes are always focused on the people that need it most, right, in your community. And it's like, you know what? They don't all have computers, then they're all going to get a Chromebook, you know? Like, that kind of attitude and passion is so powerful. And like, we don't realize the impact of what you're doing. We're not going to realize it till the next generation of kids graduate high school and they start making decisions on their own. And it was educators like you that changed my life when I was in 10th, 11th grade, taking that one-on-one time, saying, you know what, Mario, you're a little crazy. I'm going to introduce you to some artists that are crazy like you. And then, but serious, like on a note where like this one teacher took an extra time, you know, and her name was Miss Ranello, you know, and she changed my life, you know, and it's like, so it's so good to be with all of you guys. That's all I wanted to say. It's just awesome because you're all giving in such a unique way, in a selfless way. And that really is what life is about. So we really appreciate you guys.
Totally.
Yeah, and if I could just say to your point, Mario, like for me as a school leader, I'm in charge of the budget. I get to decide. So when this teacher came to me with this proposal, I want to teach creative technologies. And I was like, well, what is that going to look like? And we started talking about it. Yeah. And I had actually brought him into the Make community here in Oakland, and got us a booth at the Oakland Maker Fair. So exciting. It's just cool. You know, and he was like, wow, how did you get us a booth? How do you know these people? And it was just and what has happened, the connections that have been made for the students who we serve in the Make community because of that booth, because of my putting money from the school budget into this creative space, has been really an incredible avenue for kids who otherwise were not particularly engaged, like you're talking about, Mario. Yeah. Like, no, why this is boring. I want something interesting. Those kids have really blossomed. And the really exciting thing is that then you see that those skills that they're developing in this creative technology space being transferred across the curriculum, the ability to attend to a task and the discipline that it takes to follow through on something, even when it's not something I really want to do. So I just am a firm believer in expanding these programs.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bianca, you made a good point, about, I just think every kid's responding to shelter in place differently. And some kids are just really thriving with this model and they just love it. And when I meet with my kids on Google every week, I remind them, some of you are loving this. You don't want it to end. Others of you just can't wait back to the traditional classroom. So, and I know teachers and adults are also having the same experience. Some are really enjoying it and embracing, the changes and the challenge. And then others are just really struggling. So,
yeah. That's true.
Jillian, was there another question from?
Yeah, so Josh on Facebook had an interesting perspective. He said, I don't think most families are really homeschooling right now. They're surviving. I believe in all the innovative and creative teaching, it's how I teach every day in my classroom. But most families are just struggling to figure out how to log in Google Classroom and the day-to-day pace. What suggestions would you have for parents who are struggling to kind of accommodate and to start to shift from surviving and getting through day to day to really embracing the fact that their kids are learning, even if they don't feel as if they're good teachers or they're doing a good job? What would you suggest to encourage parents?
I mean, I'll just jump in really quick and then just say, I think first and foremost, reach out to your schools, because it's really the educators, it's our responsibility to make sure that you have the tools that you need to be successful. And we can talk you through that. We can help you through that. So that your kids have the most rich and engaging experience possible under these very difficult circumstances. And I didn't mean to be cavalier in saying that we're all homeschooling. I just think that for those of us who are professionals in the education realm, we are having to get up to speed with the notion around what homeschooling means. And what I mean by that is really about the work that we're asking kids to do. I just come back to this every time with my teachers. Is that worth the child's time?
Yeah, and I think, as a parent myself, something that I struggle with a lot is just there are days, we work full time and we travel under normal circumstances, and we're also homeschooling, and other parents didn't have that choice right now. They're thrown into this and juggling it all, at the drop of a hat. They didn't have time to prepare. Their kids have not had time to decompress and figure this all out. So they've been slammed. And I feel like I have these days where there is nothing getting done as far as academic work. And then I start feeling guilty. And it's this cycle of like, oh my gosh, my kids are not learning enough. They're not going to get on to where they need to be. And I think hearing from you guys, like the question here is, if we have to prioritize, and this was something that was brought up earlier, like what is worth, I think Bianca had said, what is worth our kids' time right now? So what would you guys say if we have a day where we can only focus on one aspect of our kids' education or rearing? Where do we start?
That's a good question. Yeah.
I think it's really important to remember that the learning comes in so many different ways. And if parents are frustrated with Google Classroom and they're frustrated with the work that's been sent home by classroom teachers, just put it aside for a minute, take a big deep breath, go for a walk, enjoy outside, or cook something new, because the learning's going to come in other ways. And it's not worth the stress that comes along with, pushing and implementing our children to do things that they're not used to. And quite frankly, like none of us are like fully equipped for. And so, to Bianca's point, what is worth their time? When they come back in August and September, whatever they've missed, the classroom teacher is going to be able to get them up to speed, and they're going to be empathetic to that. But what we can't work with is children who come back with trauma or with stress because because we were put all of this stuff on them that nobody was prepared for. So again, I tell my parents every day when they, come to me with tears or stress or frustration or confusion, take a breath and just be kind to yourself, because at the end of the day, we all want is what's best for our children, and we are all doing enough.
I love that. And, thank you for saying that, because I think a lot of parents need to hear that. It's just, it relieves something there that, we're not being judged of like how terribly our kids are doing academic work at the moment. But, and at that point, I know I had asked this earlier, but I don't know if we got a question. I'd love to hear from each of you. Like, what can parents and the community at large be doing for you right now to help you do your job in the best way possible?
Support public education, plain and simple. I mean, support public schools and public teachers, and public school teachers. And I hope that now that the whole, country has taken a step back and seeing the importance of what teachers do on a day-to-day basis, some more emphasis and thought and care will go into how we manage and how we budget for schools and for education.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then something that I wanted to kind of get into was the idea that right now, especially, and this is something that's, amplified at the moment, but it exists at all. I love it. Was the idea of resourcefulness. Right now, especially, we're limiting our outings. We're not running out to the store to get every little material and item that we could be doing projects for. And also, a lot of families are dealing with an extra financial burden right now. So it's not always possible to place those orders on Amazon and get the next new thing that we could be using. So what tools would you guys recommend at bare bones to get started in the creative world? And also, how do you teach kids that resourcefulness? Maybe Rick, because you're a maker teacher, you might be a good person to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I kind of said from the very first week of shelter in place, I think we're in about our 6th week now here in the Bay Area, but hang on to all those boxes, hang on to your Amazon boxes, boxes, tape, scissors. I mean, there's a heck of a lot of engineering, crafting that you can do with those materials. And I think we were talking earlier, and I've also seen in some of the past Maker Camp sessions, you can really start off with something and, kids can really run with it and do with it what they want. If it doesn't work this way, then try it a different way. We talked about if you don't have, Kathy was saying, if you don't have scissors, fold it a bunch of times and then tear it real carefully. There's always workarounds. And that's really what, making is about, and kind of that whole ingenuity is iterating, is kind of changing problem solving. So I would say, problem solving is a big part of it. You don't need a lot of stuff. You don't need materials. It's just more about creativity. So most of the activities that I've been assigning to students that I've been putting out there, just involve folding paper, making things out of paper, making things out of recyclables. I think it's cool, getting kids to think about just reusing things, and I love that we're not, throwing away things as maybe carelessly as we might have, in the past. So that would be, a few suggestions that I might have.
That's awesome. I want to hear from Kathy too. You guys, I feel like both, I know that you guys both are authors and stuff, but Kathy, what about you?
I was just thinking one thing that
That's something as soon as Kathy's done sharing.
I see a lot of parents getting stressed out, and I see a lot of teachers getting stressed out about the amount of time they're supposed to spend doing the online schooling and giving assignments and all this. And I don't know if every teacher would agree with this, but I think if a family's feeling like they can't do the assignment that they've been given, but your kid is, making macaroni pictures or digging into the recycling bin and creating their own thing, to let them go with that and just consider that their work, and not say, stop doing that, you need to do the worksheet or the website or whatever they've been given to do. That's the best projects that my kids did and the things that they learned the most from were the ones that in the afternoon, when they were done with their quote unquote work, would go explore and investigate on their own. I mean, my kids taught themselves so much just from watching YouTube videos of
Mhm.
how to build a thing or how to use a piece of software, or eh, kids can teach themselves. And I think if you see that spark start, then encourage it. And if not, the idea of the box of random stuff that you leave around, I think,
Right.
changing up what's available just makes it interesting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
find a different box of random stuff next week and just leave it around.
Yeah, my middle schoolers right now, they're creating project guides, kind of like their own little version of Instructables, where they're coming up with a project that they want to share out, and they're learning how to write, detailed instructions, a list of materials that they need, a list of tools, and then they're sharing that out with the rest of the class. My hope is that they're finished, they'll have a whole library of projects, and then another student will choose somebody else's project. Like I was meeting with a student today, and he was struggling. He was doing his video conference from the kitchen, and I said, well, hey, I bet you're doing some stuff in the kitchen there. Have you made anything? And sure enough, he had made some stuff in the kitchen, and I said, share it out as a project. And that's making, cooking and baking, that's making. And just document it and share it out with the rest of the class. It'd be awesome. I was going to say, some of my favorite resources are, Instructables, of course. I think Maker Camp has a ton of great resources. I've used some of them directly with my students, like the paper airplanes with John Collins. That's just fun stuff. He's a real showman.
Yeah.
Our local museum, the Tech Interactive here in San Jose, has a whole bunch of resources for making at home and engineering design challenges at home. And I bet whatever region you live in throughout the US, your local, museums will have some great resources for you, like Boston for sure. New York Hall of Science, I'm sure, has some awesome stuff.
Exploratorium.
Exploratorium, absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of just unbelievable projects to get all kinds of ideas. And most of them these days, they're real focused on making with simple things that you have, not fancy electronics, which are great, when you can get to that, but just using things that you've got around.
Yeah.
That's awesome. There's been like parades, like car parades of teachers that we've watched in town, our own kids, but when they were in public school. My daughter went through kindergarten through second grade in public, or half of second grade in public school. And so she stood out on the porch, even though she's no longer in the public school, and watched her old teachers drive by one day. And it was emotional for me. Just seeing the impact that teachers and the schools have on our kids, it really hit me. And how much emotion you could see in each of those cars coming from the teachers. So as we wrap up, I wanted to thank you guys all, first of all, for doing what you do. I know you don't always get all of the credit that you deserve and all of the resources that you need, and you do it anyway. So we appreciate that. And I wanted to wrap this conversation up with just hearing from each of you of what you want families to take from this period of time right now, or fellow educators, however you want to approach it. What do you want to leave this experience with? Whoever wants to jump in, go right ahead.
I can start, and it's something that I'm reiterating a lot with my children is and they're young and they don't know why, or maybe they don't fully grasp why they have to stay in. And we in Montessori, we have 5 grade lessons, and our 3rd grade lesson is about the story of humans and the coming of humans. And we talk about the 3 capabilities that humans have that no other animals have, and that's we use our hands as tools to create and to build. We use our capable brains to learn and to imagine and to think. And then we have a special heart that enables us to love and love those who we don't know and who we have never met, who we may never meet. So I keep reminding my children that this is humans using that special love. Like, we are staying home so that everybody else can stay safe and healthy. And that's why you're home. And I want you to really think about that. And so my takeaway is just seeing the human spirit really in its best form during all of this, and people coming together and supporting each other. So
I think my takeaway is just for people to feel validated that what they're doing that is important to them is worthwhile, and they don't need to, get the outside validation of it doesn't fit into the curriculum or it doesn't meet a certain goalpost. That if they're doing something that's meaningful to them, and especially like Rick was saying, if they can share it with others, and see that growth of seeing the next person take your project and build upon it and change it and collaborating. And there's so many things you can do when you are working on a project you're passionate about. And I think that's what people should be focusing on, is just doing as much as they feel they're capable of doing and feeling satisfied with that and not feeling guilty.
Good point, Kathy. Yeah, I think the theme of Maker Faire a few years ago was everybody's a maker, everyone's a maker. And I think I really want kids to come away with that. Whatever it is that you're doing, whatever that you're making at home, we're all makers and we're in this. There's there'll be a few times in life where people have this much downtime where it's not scheduled. Because I think it's pretty universal throughout the US. The kids are very scheduled, the whole day. And now it's just all of a sudden wide open. And to really take advantage of this unique time to learn new things. Like Kathy, you were saying about, your kid just learning things. It's just an amazing time to do that through books, through, YouTube videos, through Instructables, learn new things, take on new interests. I think for teachers, I would say, teachers are pretty slow to change and to reform. I think, education needs reforming, it needs changing. Well, it kind of happened, whether we wanted it or not, this huge reform took place, this massive reform. And I'm so proud of my fellow teachers at my school, throughout my school district, all over, that are really just this, and they're just doing a phenomenal job adapting to just a radically different way of doing our job. And I think we're going to emerge from this. It's going to be different, and I don't think things are ever going to be exactly the same. But hopefully we can look back at things and get some good lessons on how we can reform, how we can make things better for all kids, and make a rich education experience for all kids.
Yeah, I was looking at my phone because one of my team members, one of my friends sent me this. It's in Spanish, and it's from this interesting commentary from a educator from Spain. What happens if students lose their school year and instead of learning math and they learn how to cook, or they learn how to sew a shirt, or they learn how to care for a plant? What happens if they miss that lesson in your class and instead they start singing songs to their grandparents and to their younger children, their younger brothers and sisters? If they start to learn how to take care of their pets and clean the bathroom, right? So I mean, really, what happens if we develop the imagination and they learn how to paint a picture? So I think for me, the message is, and this is what we've been talking a lot with our teaching staff about, is do what you can. Do what you can and be kind, and take care of one another and take care of our students. And what you're doing is heroic under the circumstances.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, this is probably my favorite happy hour I think that we've had, because I think what's happening is that we see, it's just fun. It's just the passion that you guys have for kids is so rich and it's so bright and it's just so beautiful. You just can't deny it, There's there's certain mysteries in the world, and truth and love is one of those mysteries that you just feel it in your gut and there's no words to explain it, and we follow that. And I can feel that passion from you guys of how much you believe in educating kids. And it's not even just educating kids. It's bringing happiness, that we can all be happy, and the way that we be happy is learning how to be solve problems, and having that feeling of success, my daughter was asking me why do we have to practice so much, and it's well, the more we practice, then the greater the applause is, you know, because we do a lot of theaters and stuff, and she's working on her clowning with me, and like we were just talking about practicing sleight of hand stuff, you know, so that we can get it seamless, you know, and then the reaction is stronger, you know, and it's all that same thing, you know. But yeah, I just love what you guys do, what you represent, and what's so cool is that you all do it in a different way, a little bit, you know, and that's what makes the world so awesome, you know, is that we all, you know, we're all like having our hands like this, and we're trying to lift people up. And yeah, and the way Toby started with that too, it's just like, yeah, like it's about love and all that, you know. And so anyway, I'm not gonna get all cheesy and crazy, you know. I'm sorry, I had my moment, all right.
That's okay.
But I just wanted to let you guys know how grateful the community is, you know, and how we all are, you know, for what you guys do. And I think it's a wrap up. What do you think?
Yeah, you know, take this opportunity also to thank all of the teachers, educators, and parents who tuned in tonight, because I know there were a lot out there commenting. I was reading some of the comments on there. There's a lot to learn from everyone right now, and there's so many awesome perspectives. So thank you guys all. And I hope we continue this conversation out of this forum and out in the real world. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night.
The future of our children does depend on us having this conversation out in the real world.
Absolutely. Have a great evening, everybody, and thank you for joining.